We turn now to the wildfires exploding in the southwest and the state of emergency in Arizona. The tunnel fire burning through more than 20,000 acres. Kaylee Hartog has the latest.
Whoa, whoa. Look at the world, look at the tragedy. Trust in your word, waiting on the majesty. Keep the command, make sure he ain't mad at me. He opened our eyes, all but we glad to see. He's sending floods and fire. Tornadoes and earthquakes is coming alive. You sit in the place, will you survive? He saw us fall to Jacob on the ride. Cause we got the most side. 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 Look at the world, look at the tragedy. Keep the command, make sure he ain't mad at me. Look at the world, look at the tragedy. Keep the command, make sure he ain't mad at me. Cause we got the most side. We got the spirit of Joseph for famine is coming. I hope you prepared. He about to seal everybody that's in. The Israelites waking up out of the dead. The prophets wrote about it, how can we hear? Protected by the Father, why should we fear? Psalm 91 is all in my head. Acts 1 and 6, we almost there. This is the season, pray without season. Judging the earth, about to take out the Eden. 400 years we've been struggling, breathing. Going back home, this time we ain't leaving. Devil is man making war with the saints. Put that in our temple, he know that we ain't. Trusting this system, we know that we can't. Babylon falling and starting to stink like yeah. We know Messiah is coming in here. Destruction is coming, feel it in the air. We got the most high, so why should we fear? Keep the commandments, salvation is near. War without Father, Akbar, they dead. If you live in wicked, then he will not spare. We blow the trumpet, hoping that you will. We blow the trumpet, hoping that you will. Look at the tragedy, trust in your word. Waiting on the majesty, keep the command. Make sure he ain't mad at me. He opened our eyes, all but we glad to see. He sending floods and fire. Tornadoes and earthquakes is coming alive. You sit in the place, will you survive? He saw us fall to Jacob on the ride. Cause we got the most side. 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 Look at the world, look at the tragedy. Keep the command, make sure he ain't mad at me. Look at the world, look at the tragedy. Keep the command, make sure he ain't mad at me. Cause we got the most side. Time is ticking, Messiah is coming. Look at the wicked, they bout to get punished. You saw the children of Israel. Messiah is dragging us out of this hell. He's sending them players, but he gon' protect us. Michael was standing up, he won't neglect us. He threw us away, but he bout to catch us. Recompense, they getting extra. He made a promise to Abraham. Fulfilling his word, we seeing it now. That place where they serve, I'm taking it down. He bout to free everybody that's bound. Why they awaken the wrath for the Father? He sending famines and he sending lava. All but we know that nobody can stop you. They not repenting like you ain't the problem. Look at the tragedy, trust in your word. Waiting on the majesty, keep the command. Make sure he ain't mad at me. He opened our eyes, all but we glad to see. He sending floods and fire. Tornadoes and earthquakes is coming alive. You sit in the place, will you survive? He saw us fall to Jacob on the ride. Cause we got the most side. 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 Look at the world, look at the tragedy. Keep the command, make sure he ain't mad at me. Look at the world, look at the tragedy. Keep the command, make sure he ain't mad at me. Cause we got the most side.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, family. Hope everyone can hear me. Hope my mic is working. Hope my video is still working good. Hope everything turns out well, that I don't get cut off and trying to do some new things. But as we know, we're in the season of the Feast of Trumpets, known as Yom Teruah. So I'm not gonna, spend a lot of time. I'm just gonna dive right into it because I feel that it's very important that we understand the appointed times, the appointed feast days, what they're about, so that we can truly understand what's ahead of us and what's to come. As concerning Yahushua's coming and him raising us up as his chosen. So without further ado, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Feast of Trumpets. Just going to hop right into it. What are the Feast of Trumpets? What is this about? Why is this so significant as us as a people? And not just us as a people, just understanding Yahuwah's word in general. Why is it important that we know what the appointed times are about? Let's get into it. Like I said, it's not going to be long. This is one of my favorite verses. This is Hebrews 5:11 through 14. It says, of whom we have many things to say and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing. For when times ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of Elohim. Now, this is why it's my favorite verse, because in the westernized world, it's hard to utter certain things because people don't know the foundational principal things. That's what oracle means. It means the foundational or principal things. Because over here we've been taught that the Old Testament is insignificant. The law has been done away with. We don't need that anymore. We don't have to be under it. So no one seeks those things out. So by them not seeking those things out, we don't really have an understanding of the scriptures. We're void of the culture in which this word is written in, which was written through an Eastern Hebraic lens. So if you don't understand the culture, you will not understand the word. If you don't understand the word, then your perception of what Yahuwah is trying to say will be wrong. And if you don't understand those things, then anyone can come to you and rock you or sway you off of the purpose and the aim and the goal that Yahuwah has wanted us all along. So that's why it's important that we turn to the ancient paths, that we turn unto Yahuwah, return unto his word, so that we can get a proper perspective. Even in Israel, a lot of people are claiming that they are Israel, but they still have a very westernized perspective, a very selfish, self-centered. They don't understand the culture. They're just built up on pride, claiming that there's something. All right. So let's get into it. All right. Because we need to know the first principles of the oracles of Yahuwah, and are become such as need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongs to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Now, a little bit later, I'm going to talk about that, because we need to know that Yahuwah, the anointing, comes through experience. So even as this word says that we need to have our senses exercised to discern both good and evil. So if you don't understand what to exercise, or what machine that you're supposed to get on, if you want to call this machine a spiritual oracles as the machine to understand, to exercise your senses, to understand what Yahuwah is saying, you're going to be a babe. You're going to be unskillful. You're going to take things out of context, and you're not going to be able to fully enjoy the benefits, the blessings, and a set apart lifestyle that Yahuwah has for us in this day, and to even to manifest the kingdom in our lives. Okay, so that's why it's important. So we need to learn through this. By learning these appointed seasons, the times, and what was going on, we're able to discern good and evil. It builds your discernment spiritually, because his sheep will hear his voice, then a stranger's voice they won't follow. Like last week, we've been talking about cults and narcissist cults and signs of a cult, things of that nature. But we need discernment. All right. So let's keep going. This is 1 Thessalonians 5:1-9. It says, but of the times and seasons, brothers, I have no need that I write unto you, for ye yourselves perfectly know that the day of Yahuwah comes as a thief in the night. Okay, you see, I have times and seasons in bold, and a thief in the night in bold. We're going to talk about both of those things. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as a travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness. See, we don't supposed to be in darkness, that day shall overtake us as a thief. Ye are the children of light and the children of the day. We're not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for the helmet, the hope of salvation. For Elohim has not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by Yahushua HaMashiach, our master, our ruler. Now, this is chock full, packed full of information that I'm going to go through. Like I said, it was so much. I don't even know where to start, really. But as we continue to look at these things, to understand that we're not supposed to be in darkness, that destruction shouldn't come upon us as a thief in the night, because we know in the Western world we hear that no one knows the day nor the hour. I'm going to talk about what that means Hebraically. We got to understand the culture, because we've learned over here in the Western world that Yahushua can come at any time. He can come 5 minutes from now. We don't know. He can come at any moment, any time, any way, shape, or form, at any moment. But that is not necessarily accurate. That's not necessarily accurate. He won't just come at any time to those who understand the appointed times. Because why is he telling us to watch? Why is he telling us to pray? What is he telling us to be sober and tell us to get ready? And we're going to talk about those things. Let's hop into it. So what are the times and the seasons? What are the oracles, the foundation, or principal things concerning times and seasons? All right. This is Genesis 1 through 14. I'm not going to be long today. It says, and Yahuwah, or Elohim, said, let there be lights in the firmaments of the heavens to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. All right. So we know that Yahuwah, when he made the sun and the moon and the stars, he just didn't make it for a natural months, days, and years, natural seasons, summer, spring, winter, fall. But he made it when he set that, it's like a time clock for the whole universe. When he set these things in place, he set a prophetic time clock for certain things to happen. All right. So he set these things up for signs and for seasons. Now let's look what in Hebrew, what these words mean. Okay. The word sign in Hebrew is the word oath. An oath means a sign, a signal, a distinguishing mark, a banner, remembrance, a miraculous sign, an omen, a warning, a token, an ensign, a standard, a miracle, or a proof. Okay. Many years ago and even now, people talk about the blood red moons, when the moon turns into blood. See, that's going to be a sign. The moon's going to show a sign to us. All right. And even for seasons is moed. Seasons are appointed places, appointed times, meetings, a sacred season, a set feast, appointed sign, or a signal. So even we know in the Hebraic culture, we go by the moon cycle that gives us a new month. You know what I'm saying? So the Most High has set this up even on this day of what we are calling Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets. This season that we in was it's all about sighting the moon. All right, I'm going to get into that because we need to understand that these seasons, this is just not summer, winter, fall, spring, but it's also talking about a spiritual essence, a spiritual eternal thing that he used the sun and he used the moon to show us in a practical, if you want to call it materialistic way that we can see with our physical eyes. But these things are eternal. The law is eternal. The law has been here before the world was even founded. And the law and his instructions, I want to use the word Torah, his instructions, his principles, that is the essence of who he is eternal, is infinite. All right. So let's keep going. So let's look where we can get the times and the season. We can find the appointed times in Leviticus 23. And Leviticus 23 says this, and Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of Yahuwah, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feast. All right. So that is what's being said. And I hope you can hear me. Yes, everything's going good. Okay, so we need to understand that the word feast that we see in Leviticus 23 that I have highlighted are in bold, and the word seasons that we saw in Genesis 1:14 are the same words in Hebrew, moed. All right. That's why it's important that we understand Hebraic language, because we can see something in the English, and there's plenty of times in the English, in the Hebrew language, there can be one word, but when you go into the English King James or whatever, it's expressed in 40 different, 26, 25, 26 different words that is used for one word in Hebrew. Okay, so we need to have an understanding so we can have the context of what Yahuwah is trying to say to us. If you separate a people from their language, you separate them from their culture. You separate them from their culture, you separate them from their purpose. All right, and if you separate somebody from the culture, you separate them from their language, because in their language is their culture is embedded in their language. All right. All right, so let's keep going. I'm not going to go too deep. All right, so let's look at the word convocation, because he said we shall proclaim these to be holy convocations, and even these are, Yahuwah said, these are my feasts. Yahuwah didn't say these are the feasts of the Jews. Yahuwah didn't say these are feasts that, saying just for a set purpose, set time, and just for said people. He said these are my feasts. So if you're wanting to worship Yahuwah in spirit and in truth, you have to do things his way. You can't say that you love him, but you do not worship him. Why do you call him Adon, Adon, and you don't do the things that he tells you to do? Why do you say with your mouth, you say that you love him, but he said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So why do you say these things, but you don't do what I tell you? So we have to have an understanding that these are his appointed times. These are the times that he set aside as a sacred assembly, as a solemn assembly. Let's look at it. These are appointed places. He set up appointed places, appointed times. These are meeting times, times of meetings. These are sacred seasons. They're set apart feasts. These are appointed signs, and it's signaling something. All right. And convocation is the word mikra or mikra. It means something called out, a public meeting. And most importantly, it's a rehearsal. And it's an assembly, a calling out, and it's a reading. A lot of times we see the children of Israel, Moshe would get them together and they would read a fourth part of the day. They would do things, stand and just sit there and recite the Torah and recite their story of coming out. Okay, these appointed times, moedims, are not just their memorials. All right, and we set these things up as memorial, not just for our memories, but it's for our hearts. See, we as a people who have lost our heritage, we don't have a sense of belonging. We don't have see, our hearts are not really into these things. Now our hearts are into what our oppressors has given us as 4th of July, Independence Day, Easter, Christmas. See, our hearts are intertwined with those things. Independence Day, Thanksgiving, Halloween. But that's why it's important to understand who you are. People stress what does it matter? It matters because if you don't know who you are, you don't know what your purpose is. You don't know what you're supposed to align yourself with. See, a lot of so-called African Americans line themselves up with being a Democrat or being American or being just black, and just certain expressions of blackness that we've assumed that has no depth in it. I can't just take something that's outside of slavery, after the slavery 1900s, present time. There's no depth into that. In other cultures, they do things that were thousands of years ingrained in their culture. So their hearts connected to it. So that's why it's important to know who you are, so you can connect your heart back to Yahuwah. All right, and even if you're not a, a bloodline descendancy, if you're wanting to worship Yahuwah in His way, you have to line yourself up with this. Same way that what was her name? Same way Ruth had to. Ruth was a Moabite, but she said, "Look, I'm putting down all that I have ever learned. I'm putting that away. Your Elohim, Naomi, will be my Elohim. Your people will be my people." See, that's a profession of faith. That's a confession. That's her denouncing everything that she has ever known, everything that she's been a part of, denouncing her identity to take on a Hebrew identity, to take on the Hebrew Elohim, to take on His ways, that His people may be her people, so that she may be joined in as one. Okay? And that's what we all have to do to be adopted in the sonship of Yahuwah through Yahusha. All right? So let's keep going. So let's look at the holy rehearsals, because these are the principles. These are the foundational things. All right? And the first rehearsal, the first holy rehearsal I want to talk about is the thief in the night. All right? So let me see what I have. Let's read this. I'm gonna read this quickly. This is Matthew 24, 42 through 44, 46, and through 51. It says, "Watch, therefore, for you know." This is what Yahushua is saying. "Watch, therefore, for you know not the day, for you know not what hour Yahuwah doth come, or your master doth come. But know this, that that if the good man of the house had known and what which watch the thief would come." Now notice he's talking about what watch the thief would come. That is a metaphor. All right. He would have watched and would have not suffered his house to be broken up. "Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour you think not the Son of Man cometh." It says, "Blessed is that servant who his master, when he hath come, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My master delayeth his coming, and he shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and eat and drink with the drunken, and the master of the servant shall come in the day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of. And he shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There should be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Now, like I said, we need to understand what was Yahusha talking about, and what was it? What would Israel or his disciples that was around him, who were Israelites, they would have known what he was talking about. Talking about watching for the thief and looking and this thief coming in an hour that we don't know. Because just think about it, in Westernized culture, how many people watch and wait for a thief to come and break into their house? Do you have people up and watching? No, you don't. Okay. So let me break this down for you. And in this Eastern Hebraic culture, what they used to do was there would be priests at the Temple Mount, and every morning they would have to have a fire ready for that morning oblation. That's when they would sacrifice. See, we don't know that every day, every morning, a lamb would be sacrificed in the temple. So what would happen is that night before, that the high priest would appoint a priest to watch over the fire, to make sure the fire would be ready for the morning. All right. But sometimes what would happen, sometimes what that priest would do was, let me back up. So when the high priest would appoint a priest, he would come either in the first watch, the second watch, the third watch, or the fourth watch. That is 12, 1, 2, you see what I'm saying? 3, 4. Okay? Or 1, 2, 3, and 4. He would come during a different watch. Now, the priest that was appointed to watch the fire didn't know which watch he would come. He would know that I should be watching. Since I don't know when he's coming, I need to always be on guard. So that's where it comes to talking about, I'll come in a time that you don't know. No one knows the day or the hour. So always be on watch. Always be ready. See, that's a metaphor concerning that. All right. And there's also another metaphor. We're gonna get to it later. But so what would happen is sometimes that priest would be very lazy, undisciplined, wanting to get some rest. He would get that fire real hot because he was supposed to make sure the fire didn't go out, so it'd be ready for the morning. But what he would do is stoke up the fire, get it real hot, and then he would go to sleep. So sometimes he would go to sleep. You know, you thinking you can stay awake or whatever, think you'll be able to hear when someone's coming or whatever. But so sometimes he would go to sleep, and then the high priest would come at a certain watch. So when the high priest would see this priest sleeping, this servant, he would tell the priest, or he would go to the fire and get some of the burning amber coals from the fire and lay it next to. He would lay it next to the priest, lay it on his garments. All right, and what that would do is that priest will feel the warmth of the coal, and then make him feel even cozier. So we fall into a deeper sleep. So that's what the word was talking about when Shaul, Paul, was saying, when people say peace and safety, and there won't be any peace or safety. See, just before the end comes, there's going to be a sense of peace and a sense of safety. But you don't know that that's the fire of your destruction that's making you feel warm and fuzzy inside. So what will happen is that, okay, that priest will feel the sensation of that warmth and go and feel cozy. But then the embers of the fire would catch his garments on fire, and he would jump up and he would run out of the temple mount or out of the temple naked. And everyone would know that he was a lazy, slothful servant who was not on his job, and he would be ashamed. He would be running out naked and afraid and ashamed, and everyone would know that he was a lazy servant. He wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. Now that was a rehearsal that I heard. All right, I hope I have my slides in order. But when I heard that rehearsal, I automatically knew a scripture popped into my mind. So let's look at that scripture. All right, I'm gonna come back to that. Uh, I got the thief in the knife. It's supposed to be thief in the knife. Pardon that. Okay, so Revelation 16 and 15 says, "Behold, I come as a thief." See, the high priest would be the thief. So he said, "Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame." So this is what Yahushua was saying. Because if you read Revelations, this is written in red. So Yahushua was saying, "Behold, I come as a thief." And he's saying, "Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame." All right. So let's keep looking at this. All right. Because Luke 12:37 and 40 says, "Blessed are those servants whom Adonai, when he cometh, shall find watching." See, he found them up, alert, sober. Verily I say unto you that he shall gird himself and make them sit down to meat, and will come forth and serve them. And he shall come in the second watch, or come in the third watch, and find them so. Blessed are those servants. And this know, that if the good man of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched, and not have suffered his house to be broken through. But ye therefore be ready also. For the Son of Man cometh at an hour when you think not. Okay? So even the sighting of the moon, as we're going to get into it. So this is what Yahushua was telling them about, to be watchful, to be alert. And this is what Shaul was saying, that this day shouldn't overtake us as a thief. We should know the signs. We should know the seasons. Okay? We should be always watching. All right? So let's keep going. That's the thief of the night. Now let's look at another rehearsal. All right? Another rehearsal is the month of Elul. All right. And this is the month of preparation. The month of Elul is the 6th month. All right. So let me read to you what goes on in the month of Elul. I just want to read all of this. I could say it off the top of my head, but let me read it. So in the month of Elul, when the first sliver of the new moon appeared for the 6th month, that's when the harvesting starts. Because these feast days are always centered around harvesting time. That's why Yahushua always did parables about harvesting. Okay, we were an agricultural people. All right, so and that's why when you see harvesting and all that, talking about winning souls and different things of that nature, Yahuwah made this world and made practical things and the principles of sowing and reaping, so that we can understand it a spiritual, eternal principle that is not seen with the eyes. See, this earth mirrors the spirit realm. Okay, so if we learn the principles of how a seed is grown, we learn the principle of a certain animal. We learn the principle of certain things. That's how we gain wisdom. When you go out in nature and look how the world works, that's why we're so far away from the things of Yahuwah, because now we're not agricultural. We have a Walmart, we have a Kroger's, we have a Aldi's, we have all these different type of grocery stores. All right, we don't need to dig for water. We got running water. We don't need to understand things about lights and how light works. We got electricity. Everything is so convenient, so it shifts us away from the culture and the principles that Yahuwah have, and so then we're separated from Yahuwah because we don't speak his language. That's why it's so important to understand culture. That's why I like other nationalities that understand their culture. They have a culture that's thousands of years old, and every season they go back to those things. Even Yahuwah. That's why he set up this. He set up a season called the Feast of Tabernacles, where he says, "I don't care where you are, what you're doing. I want you to build booths, and I want you to go out in the wilderness to reconnect yourself to the land, to reconnect yourself." Now, just imagine if we were never off our land and we kept the commandments like we're supposed to. Just imagine that would connect us. Although we have cell phones and cameras and lights and all this stuff, for 1 week, Yahuwah said, go back to the land. Go back to how it first was. So you'll never forget. So you always know how to form, how to dig, how to do this, how to plant, how it is to live life outside of the amenities, so you can reconnect yourself to the earth, reconnect yourself to me, get an understanding. All right, we're gonna go over Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles next week. So let's keep going. All right. So by the mid-month, that is when we're working very diligently in the fields, bringing in the harvest, because we got to have it in. You have to have it in because you have to process it, you have to store it, and you have to set it aside 1/10 of it. See, because these are the times where they brought in the tithes. All right. So you had to have all this prepared by the time of the Feast of Trumpets, or Yom Teruah. So the 6th month, you're preparing for this. All right. And you have to have all this stuff up at Jerusalem in exactly 1 month later. So a lot of work is being done. And so while we're bringing in the harvest, as the moon begins to wane at the end of the month of Elul, the men are out in the field. They're bringing in the harvest. The women are processing at the mill, grinding. All right. And now as the moon begins to wane, we know that when the first sliver of the new moon appears, it will be the Day of Trumpets, which is Yom Teruah. That means it will be a high Sabbath. And so what we do is the moon wanes, then we stop what we're doing. We get out of the field, we go home, we take a set of garments, and we wash them and bleach them out. That's why I have these white garments on. And we set them out in the sun, and we get them white as we possibly can. See, that's what we used to do in the land. And we iron them out, we stretch them out, we fold them so that they are pressed, and we set them aside so we'll be ready. See? They set aside, they were doing these things in the month of Elul. Okay. Mid-month, this is what they do. Okay. Mid-month, we got to get these garments ready. We got to get everything prepared. All right. Okay. So, this is done because we have a high Sabbath coming. And so the women will be preparing a feast. They will get all the things that are prepared that's necessary for the feast. And they get all the provisions necessary. And they will set them aside. And then they will go back at the millstone and begin to grind. Okay? Getting the harvest ready. Getting everything ready. All right? So now we're out in the fields. We're bringing in the sheaves. We're at the millstone grinding, and then just as the moon wanes and there's no moon, we are to watch and wait. Okay, I believe in the first sliver of the new moon. Some believe that the full moon is the new moon. Some believe that no moon is the new moon. We got different people, but I believe that it's the first sliver. That's just me. All right, I don't, saying no. Uh, I feel that it's important, no matter what you believe in, that you're doing the feast. That's the most important thing, that you're getting an understanding and you're making an effort to follow Yahudah. That's the most important thing. All right. Okay. So, because to me, it's nothing to fall out about. All right. So, let's see. Let's see where I stopped off at. Okay. So, the women, they're bringing in the sheaves. The men were bringing in the sheaves. The women at the millstone grinding. And just as the new moon begins to wane, there's no moon, and we're watching and waiting. Okay, and they will be covering the sun and making sure they can see the moon. All right. So let me just stop right there. Let me see where we can see that at. So this is what it says in Matthew 24, 36, 40, and 42. It says, "But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, and the one shall be taken, and the other left. So watch therefore, for ye know not what hour Yahudah doth come." All right. So this is something that we need to understand. Okay, because a lot of times we hear about, uh we hear, you're gonna be taken. If you ever seen movies, what's the movie? The Rapture and all that stuff, how people are in airplanes and the pilot was saved, so the pilot get taken, and people in cars, and all of a sudden the rapture happens and people are going. See, that's fictitious. That's man-made. And there's people who don't understand Hebrew culture. So when you don't understand, you'll make up something, and you'll make up a thing that will get you out of trouble. Just think about it. In this westernized world, Christianity, that's why their doctrine is all about love and forgiveness and grace. Why is it always about love, forgiveness, and grace? Because if you if this land was you came on this land, you killed the indigenous people of this land, you came and got hundreds of millions of people from their land, brought them into slavery, tortured them, beaten them, whipped them, raped them, cut them up, what I'm saying, all these different things. Yeah, you're not going to talk about retribution. You're not going to talk about judgment. You're not going to talk about those things. You're going to push, love your enemies. Do good to those that spitefully use you. Forgiveness, grace, grace, grace. You see, it's because the spirit behind those things, it's a spirit behind that that's lullabying people to not to take accountability, to not be accountable, and come into a fully repentant mode. All right. So let's keep going. That's a side note. All right. So let me keep going here. Let's see what else we got. All right. So let me keep reading. So they would do this in the month of Elul. Let me see what I got here. Let me talk about the sighting of the new moon. because I got stuff kind of tossed around here. So let me talk about this. Let me just read it. So the sighting of the new moon. So this is how we used to sight the new moon. So when we see the first sliver of the new moon, that's when the men in and around Jerusalem were in the fields, still after the sun goes down, bring in the harvest. Then they will stop. They will rush up to the Temple Mount. When they arrive at the Temple Mount, the gate is already closed at the Temple Mount because the sun is down. So they call out to the temple guard that will be at the Temple Mount. All right. And they will call out to him and say, "We've sighted the new moon." And then when the temple guard sees that there is at least two witnesses, then he goes up to the Temple Mount and calls for one of the elders. All right. My camera says it's hot. I don't know why. So if you don't see my face, you'll be able to see the slides will continue. That's if my mic doesn't go out as well. All right. So let's look. It says so one of the elders of Israel will come down. They will go to the gate. They will interview those two men who have come up. When he knows that they have at least two people have sighted the new moon and have verifiable witnesses, then he goes up and the assemblies and all the elders in the hall of hewn stone. They had a place called the hall of hewn stone that was adjacent to the temple, and he will call for the high priest and calls out to him and says, we have two witnesses. So then the high priest will stand up on the Temple Mount because he's the only one who had authority over the gate after the sun was set. And the high priest stand up at the Temple Mount and calls out to the two witnesses. And we say, "Come up here." We say, come up here, come up hither. All right. And those two witnesses was ascend up before the high priest and the elders, and they would give their reckoning of the first sliver of the new moon and the high priest to the high priest. And right then, when both of them give identical testimonies, he will cry out, "Sound the shofar! Sound the shofar!" That's what the high priest would say. Once these two witnesses, the ones they verified them and got their account, he would then say, "Sound the shofar." All right. So the trumpets would blast from Mount Moriah across the Kidron Valley Bridge over to the Mount of Olives to the sentry who was staying there with a torch in his hand, and he would put the torch to the pile of wood. Then a pillar of fire will go up into the heavens. As that pillar of fire goes up, the distant sentries that will be across the mountains throughout the hilltops of Israel, they will see that distant fire that is lit, and they will put torches to their pile of wood that the fire goes up, and they will blow the shofars. And then they would know that it was Rosh Kodesh, which means a set apart time, a set apart day. It's the Feast of Trumpets. All right. Or a new month, a new moon. All right. Because they would do this every month. All right. So it is a sanctification of the new moon. And right at that moment, when the trumpets sound, it is a high Sabbath. All right. So let me read this to you. So that's what it means. But when they said, I haven't gotten there yet. Let's keep going. Let's go to this one. So when I read that, I immediately it took me to Revelations 11. See, that's why it's important to understand the word, because when you hear rehearsal, you know truth when you hear it. My people know my voice. My children know my voice. The strange they won't follow. It's not hard to follow Yahudah. A lot of people are afraid to wander off and venture off into certain things because they're afraid that they're going to get lost and they're going to stray away from the Most High. But if you understand His word, stick to His word, you can't go astray. These are fundamental. These are the ABCs of Yahudah. These are practical, sound things. All right. So let's read this. Revelations 11, 3, 12, 15 through 17. It says, "And I will give power to my what? Two witnesses." Don't you need two witnesses to sight the moon? See, these are the final fulfillments of the last days. That's why it's important to understand these days. It says, "And they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither." All right, this is the 12th verse. Because we know what happened to the two They testified. They witnessed to the world. The kings of the world killed them, and they laid their bodies out for 3 days. The whole world, they threw a party because they say, "Oh, we killed them." But all of a sudden, Yahuwah breath went into them, and he revived them, and he says, "Come up here." And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. And the 420 elders, see, this is the what is some call the Sanhedrin, are the elders which sat before Yahuwah on their seats, fell upon their faces and worship Yahuwah, saying, "We give thee thanks, O Yahuwah Eluah Almighty, which are and was and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned." And the seventh angel then sounded his shofar, and there was a great voice in heaven saying, "The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our dear Adonai, and of his Hamashiach, and he shall reign forever and ever." See, this is when Israel heard this in Revelation, they immediately understood what this was about. See, over here in the westernized world, we don't know what this is about. To some of us, this is going to be just rehashing of some information. But a lot of people in this westernized world don't know and don't care to know. All right. So let's see. Where else can I go? So let me talk about the grinding at the mill. So at the moment that the first trumpet sounded, at that moment the trumpet sounded, that meant every transaction in the land of Israel immediately abruptly stopped right at that moment. Every store closed. Everyone immediately stopped what they were doing right at that very moment. And at that moment, the first trumpet sounded. The Temple Mountain is a high holy Sabbath. All right. Everything stops in the land of Israel. So if you had 50 Hebrews and 50 Gentiles in the field working, because that's what we're doing, was working, preparing ourselves for the feast. So once you hear the trumpet, those that were Hebrews would stop what they're doing. They would leave. Now, those that were Gentiles wouldn't know what that sound meant. They wouldn't be prepared. They wouldn't be ready. It would mean nothing to them. They would continue on. So that's what Yahushua was saying when he says, one shall be at the millstone grinding, one shall be taken, and things of that nature. He's saying that one will understand what's going on and be ready, and the one that is taken is actually the one that will be slaughtered. Okay, one that was taken is the one that lost their life because they didn't understand the appointed times. They didn't understand. They won't understand the final fulfillments because it's not a part of their culture, or they ignored when people trying to tell them. All right. So same thing with 50 women. If you had 100 women, 50 of them were Hebrews, other 50 were Gentiles. The Hebrew women would know what to do. Why? Because for centuries, let me see if I can find it. As soon as the trumpet sounded, the Hebrews would okay, because the Hebrews for centuries would have known that when the trumpet sound, they stop what they're doing. They go home, they wash, they put on their white garments, which have been prepared ahead of time, and they would bring out that feast. These are what the women would do. They would bring out all that stuff to prepare for the feast, and this would be the feast of Yahuwah, the day of trumpets, Yom Teruah. Okay, that day that occurs in a day and hour which no man knows, because the way the moon is set up in a way that you don't know when it's going to come. You don't know if it's going to be a 29-day month or a 30-day month. So they didn't know which time. So they always was watching for the moon because they didn't know what day or what time or what hour. See, that's the practical understanding of these scriptures and what Yahushua was trying to say. He wasn't saying that he was going to come at a time at any moment. wasn't saying that. He's not saying that. But you have to understand these rehearsals. These are things that they were doing for thousands of years. And many times they said that Dawid was the one that put these rehearsals into place. All right. So let me see what I have here. All right. And let's think about these garments. You know, we talked about how the priest didn't have his garments prepared, right? So what he would do is the king, if he didn't have his garments, see, this is what Yahushua was talking about. It says Matthew 22:11. It says, and when the king came in to see the guests, he saw that a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said unto him, friend, how comest thou in hither not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There should be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. See, because in this month of preparation, you're supposed to have your garments already ready. And that was supposed to signify spiritually, that was supposed to put you in mind that one day there's going to be a final fulfillment. So my life has to be ready. I have to be spotless, sinless, and blameless in my life. And I have to be prepared. My garments have to be white. My life has to be right. My acts have to be right with Yahuwah. All right. We went through the sighting of the new moon. We went through the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, so that's it. That's it. That's all I have for today. Thankfully, I pray that thank Yahuwah that everything went well. So this is why it's so important. All right, because after the Feast of Trumpets, you have the 10 days of awe. But we're going to get into that next week. All right. So I pray that this message be a refresher for some of us, and to some of us just be a blessing to really understand, to really dig deep into Yahuwah's word, so we can have an understanding. So without further ado, like I said, I pray that everyone be blessed in this season. That is a time of introspection, time of really looking into ourselves, reevaluating ourselves, self-examining ourselves to see where we are. It's a time of introspection. So let's take this time out to enjoy what Yahuwah's going to do, and enjoy each other and enjoy our mishpachah. So like I say, I'm Eliyahu Malak. This is the Great Awakening Assembly of the Most High, known as TJ Assembly. And I bid you a shalom, and I pray that you be blessed. And also, I want to thank all of you who have been giving. It's very humbling. So I just want to say thank you for those that Yahuwah has laid up on your heart to give to the ministry. I really, truly thank each and every one of you. It's very near dear to my heart, really, really, honestly. So without any further ado, I bid you shalom, and may the Most High continue to bless you. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom. Be blessed.